And this one just spoke to us because of how good of a Maine story it is. You'll see when you watch the film, there's a lot of just feel good stories, and the family just really comes through in the end, and it's just a great American story.
Let me just set the stage. Ernest Vino from Millinocket was in a B-17 bomber that was shot down over the Adriatic Sea in 1944. His remains were never recovered. Kirk, how was it found that his remains were in that plane that was at the bottom of the sea that was eventually discovered a few years ago?
All the rest of the crew got off. They were able to land the plane gently, make a very nice landing. Unfortunately, Lieutenant Villeneuve had been struck over the target by flak. He was unconscious. They presumed he was dead. So you cut to 2017, and I'm working on a project on another airplane, a B-24, and it's only 2 miles away from where this one went down. There was an airstrip there, so there are a lot of planes that got lost in the water. And the Villeneuve family had heard about our expedition to Viz, and they said, if you run across the B-17, please lay some flowers on it for our Uncle Ernest, who we believe is on the plane, but nobody knew for sure. So that was where I picked it up.
What is remarkable is the footage that shows the plane almost entirely intact on the bottom of the sea. When you look at that stuff, it kind of sends a chill up your spine, doesn't it?
It looks like you could take the water away, start up the engines, and take it off.
And it's so jarring in a way because you never expect to see a fully intact aircraft, especially one that big, outside of its environment. You can imagine it's easy to see it on an airport tarmac, but underwater, with all the fish around and sea life, it's disconcerting and sublime at the same time.
After several reconnaissance dives, it was determined that Lieutenant Vino's remains were in a small crawl space in the bottom of the fuselage. After several more dives, Ernest's remains were fully recovered and flown back to the U.S., where they were officially verified and prepared for burial. With the agonizing search now over, Lieutenant Vino could finally come home.
What happens after the remains are recovered and brought back to Maine and brought to Millinocket is really heart-tugging. Fill in the spaces there.
It was quite the scene. The American Legion riders were there, post 80, kind of spearheaded that, and then they had a bunch of other American Legion riders from around the country kind of motorcade them up the highway. You'll see this in the film. They bring them into Millinocket, family members, community members, paying tribute along the side of the road. And then the day of the burial was just unbelievable. The whole town came out.
It's closure for my grandparents. They have waited so long, wondering where he was. And I know they're all smiling down from heaven today.
This is an unusual story on a lot of levels. One of them is that, and I hadn't known this, were something like 79,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen from World War II, from the United States, who were missing when the war ended, and close to 90% of them have never been recovered. So this story of recovery stands out. It's a rarity, and especially coming this long, nearly 8 decades after the event.
We have a saying that almost everyone has heard, which is leave no man behind. Someone like Lieutenant Vino, being at the bottom of the sea as an airman was not where he was meant to be. So the DPAA has an absolute commitment to recovering anyone that can possibly be recovered, no matter the danger, no matter the expense.